any questions so far on that? Yes? Matt?
What do we have for written records? I'm imagining him traveling from where he was and up north, and as you say, meeting Christians and meeting Jews and hearing about Jesus.
Uh-huh.
That strikes me as an unusual situation. Oh, what is this Jesus like? What does he say? Do we have a record of, did he kind of absorb some things or pick and choose some things, or did he just say, no, this is revelation from Gabriel?
Well, I think what we have is revelation, is what's claimed as revelation from Gabriel. Certainly honoring Jesus as a prophet and nothing more than that. He was a prophet who spoke in a long line of biblical prophets. It's interesting. The Quran does say something in particular about Jesus and about Muhammad. This is where the two of them come together in this book. And I'll read it. It's in Surah, that's chapter 61, I think verse 6. And of Jesus, son of Mary, who said to the Israelites, I am sent forth to you from God to confirm the Torah already revealed. Okay, that makes sense. Jesus is a prophet, right? That's the Son of God. He's a prophet. The Torah has been revealed through Moses, right? The law. And now Jesus is shoring that up, saying, yep, you're on the right track, confirming the Torah already revealed, and, this is the second part of what Jesus did, and to give news of an apostle that will come after me, whose name is Ahmed. Ahmed. So the Quran has Jesus predicting the coming of a prophet, a final prophet known as Ahmed, or Muhammad. Oh, isn't that convenient? Call me cynical, but that's how this book presents it. That Jesus is predicting and paving the way, basically, for Muhammad to come and give the final revelation. We'll say more about that final revelation in a minute, but that's kind of the way that story gets presented along the way. The Quran teaches that Muhammad was a servant of God without any superhuman powers, exceptional only in the special duty to be God's prophet and messenger. You see some of that humility as you read these surahs. Say thou, I am but a man like you. It is revealed to me by inspiration that your God is one God. Say, I tell you not that with me are the treasures of Allah, nor do I know what is hidden, nor do I tell you that I am an angel, but I follow what is revealed to me. Say, can the blind be held equal to the seeing? Will you then consider not? You know, what you see is what you get. I'm nobody special. I'm just a messenger. I'm just revealing what has been revealed to me along the way. Muhammad indicates that it was by a miracle that the ability to communicate the Quran was given to him, an educated person. Other proclamations of the Quran describe Muhammad as a model for the faithful. The numerous model stories from Muhammad's life demonstrate this. Muslims are bound to abide by these traditions, also known as hadith. Okay, so when we get to it in a bit, but the highest authority, of course, for Islam's is the Quran. The Quran. And right after the Quran, and secondary in importance, is the hadith, which means tradition. And basically the traditions are the words and deeds of Muhammad that his friends and acquaintances wrote down and kept track of. It's like a biography of his life that they kept track of and collected after he was gone. I mean, that kind of makes sense. I mean, hey, this was a great man. This was a great prophet. We better write down some of this stuff. Now, what happened is they wrote down this stuff for 300 years, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, until finally a group of people got together and says, no, this is the authorized hadith. And so really, the Quran and the hadith are the binding traditions that still govern the lives of Muslims to this day in a very, very real way. So that's kind of where the things developed over time. After Muhammad died, there were numerous legendary stories that arose among the faithful. He was the perfect Muslim. He had superhuman qualities. There was a legend that his heart was purified in childhood. It's like his chest was ripped open and it was purified. And then he was able to receive the divine revelations unstained because he had a pure heart. And then finally, the last one, he ascended to heaven on his heavenly steed, Baruch. Do you know that story? Do you know where he ascended into heaven from in this legend? In Jerusalem. Where in Jerusalem?
Dome on the Rock.
The Dome of the Rock, in the Temple Mount area. So you've seen the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, right? That's where the Temple Mount area was. That's where the Jews now are praying for the Messiah to return and for the temple to be rebuilt. But for now, it's in the hands of Muslims, and the Dome of the Rock is there. There's two mosques there. There's Mosque Al-Aqsa as well. So he ascends into heaven from the rock where Abraham was purported to be sacrificing Isaac from, on that Temple Mount area, which is also part of the sacred tradition of Islam. Okay? So these legendary things collect around him, and his legend grows and grows. It's interesting, there has been some call of late to celebrate Muhammad's birthday, but then there's always pushback saying we can't celebrate his birthday because he's just a man. We don't want to elevate him beyond that mortal status. And it's for the same reason they don't want to be called Mohammedans, because you wouldn't want to be named after a person, just a person, a normal, ordinary human being for which your movement was born, as opposed to Lutherans who had no trouble being called after Martin Luther, right? Well, Martin Luther didn't want that. He didn't want a movement named after him, but we did it anyway. And Mohammedans have kind of felt the same way, at least in a different sort of way. Don't call us after Muhammad, because that would be venerating a man too much. Okay? Well, let's go on to trace that Ishmael connection here. You know the story of Ishmael from the Bible? Kind of. I want you at your tables for about a minute and a half to share all the information you remember about the story of Ishmael from Genesis. Okay? 1, 2, 3, go. What do you remember from this story?
Was he illegitimate? Was he the handmaiden?
He was I wouldn't call him illegitimate. That sounds like a modern convention, because at the time it was appropriate to give your handmaiden to your husband if you were not able to have a child, right? And in this case, the parent would have been, who was the mother?
Sarah.
Hagar, right? Hagar was the mother, and the father would have been Abraham. Go ahead. Abram. Well, yeah, we don't want to get confused, so don't. We'll just say Abraham. Okay? What else do we remember of this story? Sarah wasn't happy. Can you imagine that? It was a good idea in principle, honey, but not too crazy once you get the guy home. He's a little too cute. Basically the story didn't say that, but it says she looked at her with contempt. And you could imagine any look from her being interpreted as contempt. Yeah, that's a hard one. Yeah, what else? What else do you remember about this story?
Didn't they take him out into the desert?
They did.
Hagar.
Sarah sent Hagar and little Ishmael out into the desert. Get out of here, I can't stand you. Yeah.
Ishmael, maybe it's just tradition that we look at him as the father of the Arab.
As the Arabs, yeah. Well, that's certainly how it came to be seen eventually. Ishmael came to be seen, I think, as part of the legendary quality, as the father of the Arabs, Arab people. Okay, anything else you remember?
And God did promise Ishmael that he would be the father of a great nation.
He did. We forget that part. I have a relative that's married to a Palestinian, something like a familiar story over there, and And he traced the promises of God through Ishmael. And it's like, there were promises of God through Ishmael? It's like we don't even hear that part of the story. I want to read just a few things. You can read this at home from Genesis 16 and 17 later, but let me just read some of the promises that come. And the angel of the Lord said to her, which is Hagar, "Now you have conceived and shall bear a son. You shall call him Ishmael, for the Lord has given heed to your affliction. He will be a wild ass of a man, with his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he shall live at odds with all his kin." Now that's almost kind of scary, isn't it? I mean, it's so visceral, but it just sounds so true. But then here's the promise that you were talking about, Marcia. Verse 20 of chapter 16. "As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will bless him and make him fruitful and exceedingly numerous. He shall be the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation." You didn't even know that was in there hardly, did you? If you did, great. If you did, most of us just don't know this story because we trace everything through Isaac. Isaac gets all the press, all the good press. But Ishmael's in here, and the same blessings are to him. Interesting, I think. Some of the legendary stuff that comes up around Ishmael. Muhammad is a descendant of Ishmael. So not just the Arabs, but Muhammad in particular. Ishmael grew up in Mecca. Now in the Bible, he's living in southern Israel. And that's the Negev it's called. Negev. But according to legend, he grew up in and around Mecca, and he grew up there because Abraham took him there. Ishmael was the progenitor of the Arabs. Isaac may have gotten the land, but Abraham's blessings went to both boys. And as we said earlier, Ishmael fathered 12 sons. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting story. We forget that Abraham is the father of all of our religions. Jew and Muslim and Christian.
What do we know of the 12 sons?
That's a good question. I don't know. Google it and report back to us, okay? I said that a lot today because they asked a lot of off-the-wall questions. Say that again?
Nothing much was mentioned on that. Even if you track the Biblic line, you don't find that.
You don't find anything, okay. So we don't know anything about. Here, there's my answer. Nothing. We don't know. Thank you for sharing
And
that.
I'd like to add something.
Yes.
When you talked about the sacrifice of Isaac, in their eyes, it is Ishmael and not Isaac.
Yeah.
Until now, it's one of their feasts. They pick the first one is the Ramadan, and then the other one where they slaughter the sheep on this event is because of Ismail.
You know, and I've heard that story, but I think I've also heard that they're at least willing to acknowledge the sacrifice of Isaac or not.
No,
They're not at all.
no, it is Ismail.
Okay, so they just substitute that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
And what happened to Isaac?
You need to repeat the answer.
Will we hear?
They're not talking about it.
What he said is that in their story, that it's Ishmael that's sacrificed, or at least they attempt to sacrifice, not Isaac. So Isaac isn't in the story at all. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. I just spoke on that.
And in fact, when you look to the events in the Bible, the sacrifice of Isaac came after he set him away with his mother, and after that, then God, or requested of Abraham to sacrifice his only son, and that's one of the words in the Bible: "Take your only son."
Okay.
Sacrifice him.
All right. Thank you.